present and accounted for, so I will reconvene the meeting from closed session. And there are no reportable items to report today. So if I could, I would ask you all to stand and have Antonio lead us in the flag salute.
Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so welcome to our meeting for the month of May. Seems like it's been 5 weeks since we've been here. Per Board Policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. So at this time, I would ask if there's anyone wishing to speak concerning items that are on the agenda today. If not, then is there anyone wishing to speak concerning items that are not on the agenda? Okay, so none as well, and so we will move on. And first up, we're going to ask our student trustee, Antonio, for his monthly report.
Okay, so our spring elections results came in for Student Senate for the 2019-2020 academic school year. Our new president will be Elijah Martinez. Our new vice president will be Kenneth O'Leary. He's currently our vice president. We're very excited to have him again. And the student trustee, which you guys will see at the board meetings next year, will be Ray. She's currently our publicity officer, so some of you may already know who she is. I think she'll do a good job next year. Our new student ambassador will be Alyssa Ars, and our commissioner of record will be Tara Rodriguez. The rest of the positions, they'll be appointed within the first 2 weeks of the fall semester. Regarding some of the events we did within the last month, we assisted with steps on all 3 campuses, helping high school students enroll their classes. We held our annual staff appreciation lunch, which some of you came up with, and we appreciated that to show our support. We also, this Friday, we assisted 6th graders, over 2,000 6th graders who are giving tours on campus. And then this week and next week for finals, we'll be passing out snacks and drinks. And then I have a personal update. As many of you know, I'll be transferring out. This is my last semester here at COS. I'm still undecided, but I'm still looking at all my options. I was recently accepted to Berkeley, so I'm looking at all my options to see if I could go there, or if not, I still have other great options. So it's Thank you.
All right, very nice, Antonio. It's good to have options. Always good. All right, so next up will be board member reports, and I'm going to start on my left with board member Sherman.
I just would report that we had the COS President's Cup golf tournament a couple Fridays ago. We had the most attendees we've ever had. I think we had 25 teams of 6 people teams. We raised a lot more money than we thought we were going to. I think it was like 6,000 more than what our goal was. So it was a very good turnout. One of the members that played in the tournament saw me the next day and said, "Boy, that COS tournament is becoming the tournament you want to be in." So that was nice. That's it.
All right, very good. I think you just took Mr. Foster's report and cut it in half. All right, Raymond?
There was quite a bit of events that took place that I attended, but I just wanted to highlight the appreciation that I had to attend the annual trustee conference. And I just wanted to share some of the courses that I took there, workshops, the Brown Act, ethics training, trustee leadership in support of AB 705 implementation, student success metrics, enrollment, retention, and the new funding formula, workshops on vision of success, dual enrollment, legal guidelines and best practices, as well as how the board can foster greater diversity. So really appreciate it, meeting with other trustees from throughout the state, and appreciate the opportunity.
Halfway through, Raymond had some fun. He texted me a picture of one workshop he was attending, hiring your next CEO.
That's not true.
You gotta watch this one.
We all got that text too.
It was a workshop, but I did not attend.
All right. Mr. Lane.
Some of us were able to make the town hall meeting with when the chancellor was here, and so rest assured, if you happen not to have been able to make that he got our message on multiple fronts. There was a meeting with Dr. Castro from Fresno State at the Hanford Center, and so we talked a lot about the evolution of four-year degrees here at the Fresno State campus, on campus. And I think we all sort of agreed to link arms and move forward on a lot of different fronts. So that was a nice event. Tim? Yeah.
I attended the Giant Awards in the gym. That was fun. To the committee that put that together, it was a great, fun time to celebrate some retirements. Steve in the back and Christine. Fun to honor both of you and give you that much-deserved recognition, and just a great time to see COS people laughing and talking, and it's a good vibe. I enjoy that. So thank you to that committee for doing a great job.
Okay, I had the privilege of attending the Exeter School Board meeting last week with President Calvin. I think he was given 8 minutes on their agenda, and he did a great job with the limited amount of time he had. And I can tell you that the folks in Exeter are very appreciative of our program. Dr. Lacerna would like to hear this regarding dual enrollment. So it's going great according in their eyes. So good job. Okay. Next up is foundation report. Mr. Foster.
Good evening, trustees. I really do enjoy following the trustee reports because it does cut mine down a little bit, and it's just wonderful to have you trustees all be so engaged in the community and the COS activities. So we really appreciate that. I certainly do. I apologize for the casual dress. We have my Visalia Sunset Rotary Club is doing their fundraiser right now at Adventure Park, so I'm going to be decking out as soon as I finish my report. We did have a scholarship night, our annual scholarship night, in which we award scholarships. Of course, all the scholarships get awarded regardless of that night, but the night is designed to get the donors and donor representatives that have read for scholarships to sit down and meet with the students receiving the scholarships. And so we set up that format to where we have a bunch of round tables, and the donors and the students sit together, and parents and family members are still welcome. They sit up in the auditorium seating or bleacher seats in the Porter Fieldhouse. And so it's just a wonderful venue. We had over 350 donors, students, volunteers, and family members in attendance. This year we awarded $379,000 in 422 awards. So that's not our largest number, but if you factor in the $50,000 that we are, as the foundation, are pledging to award COS transfer students that are transferring to, I got to read this, the Fresno State Visalia Campus South Valley Integrated Teacher Education Program, ITEP for short, and it needs a shortened name. We will, with that extra up to $50,000, we will match the number of awards, almost match the number of awards, and we will exceed the prior years in total dollars awarded to our COS students. And there is still all the other awards that come through the COS Foundation just as a pass-through, all the community clubs and things like that. Those are what we call outside scholarships. They're not housed or funded by the COS Foundation or the donations that have come through the COS Foundation. So our students are doing really well with the financial support that they're receiving. And our donors just love the format. They just love that format of our scholarship night. We hosted a movie night at the Hanford Educational Center. Thanks very much to Kristen and her all her staff over there. They were wonderful hosts, and they stuck it out the whole night. And we easily had 250 in attendance, and we showed Coco on May 3rd, and the Recreation Center staff stated on the microphone in front of everybody that that was the largest crowd that they have had at one of these movies in the park program that they do. So we were really excited about that. We hustled it, and the people turned out. It was great. I wouldn't want to do it in June and July, though. I don't know how they do that, but more power to them. And then lastly, we do have our 3rd annual Brewfest event coming. I just wanted to remind you of that. It is on August 8th. And right now we're in sponsorship phase, and we've received over $10,000 in commitments so far for that sponsorship. We aim to exceed our sponsorships of last year, which was $40,000, and we're well on our way to doing that. So
Is that the
we're
one in
excited.
conjunction with the Rotary?
That's correct, yes. The Visalia Sunset Rotary Foundation and really all the Rotary clubs just really collaborate well to turn on that event, and the net proceeds of that event are shared by the Visalia Community Rotary Foundation, the Visalia Rotary Community Foundation and the COS Foundation 50-50.
All right. Questions comments for Mr. Foster?
Thank you. Have fun at Adventure Park.
Thank you. We're gonna go have celebrity tricycle races.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, next up is our monthly accreditation report. Dr. Lacerna.
Hi, everybody. So some of this I shared, I'm going to hand this over, sorry, last time, but I'm going to give you an update. We have now put the accreditation work group back together, and we will be meeting on May 20th to start looking at the institutional self-evaluation report sections. That we have action plans that were built out of the last report, as well as the quality focus essay. So we're going to be looking at how that will get implemented. We start working on that, and then looking at how we're going to start gathering evidence for the report 7 years from now. So we'll be meeting probably a couple times a semester to work on that, and our first meeting is May 20th. We're getting ready to have Academic Senate appoint a faculty co-chair and several new faculty members to the work group. So we'll update you on that at the next meeting. And the other thing I had mentioned at the last meeting that we had the conference that was coming up in April, and we had 7 presentations going on there, or I think 7. 5 presentations and several presenters, but we had President Calvin was a panelist on the CEO Forum. I was a panelist on the Accreditation Liaison Officer Forum, which was really fun. It was a lot of fun to get up there and just talk about all the stuff that we've done and kind of remember all of the work, and it was really engaging and fun. And then President Calvin, myself, and Vice President Jessica Morrison, we presented on the planning and governance and how you put that together and how you get that going, and then our story of how we got there. Dr. Ozturk and Dr. Shingle and Vice President Christine Staton did a data talk, developing, assessing your own model for integrated planning. And then Dr. Harris, our faculty head of curriculum and student learning outcomes, presented on how to build a culture of assessment. So it was really fun and engaging. COS was all over the place. People were asking us a lot of questions. We've had a lot of fun follow-up emails and requests to come and talk to folks. And I'm just going to quote Dr. Ozturk here in a text he sent me. He said, "Here is an estimate of how many people." So this is coming from the researcher, right? Here is an estimate of how many people heard our story. Average unduplicated head count at each COS participated session, 50. 5 sessions times 50 equals 250 people. They said about 500 were attending the conference, so half of them heard from COS. So that was from our researcher. So I just wanted to share that, and thanks to everyone who presented there.
All right,
Excellent job.
comments, questions? Okay, very good.
I mean, I think it's obvious that we did well because of the presence that we had in a forum where everybody else is trying to figure it out, right? So congratulations, congratulations. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great time.
I second that. All right, next up is Superintendent President Report, Mr. Calvin.
Thank you, President Nunes. I've got a fun report tonight. I get to introduce a special guest, recognize our student trustee, and then introduce our VP and deans, who will introduce 3 new faculty members that we're really, really excited about. But first, I've got just a couple of fun items to share. The number of our graduates participating in this year's ceremony on May 23rd is up almost 100 from last year. We were pretty excited about 519. We'll have 613 participating this year. Later on this summer, we'll share the actual number of total degrees and graduates. And stay tuned for that number, because it is huge. We've been on this trajectory for 5 years now. This year's is off the charts, and we're just so excited about that. So come out and support your Giants on May 23rd, but get there early, because that bowl seems big until you start filling it up. And Chief Meisner can attest to that. We end up turning people away. It gets so crowded in there. We also hosted 1,834 high school seniors 2 weeks ago in our STEPS, our Students Transitioning Enrollment process, on all 3 campuses. That broke an all-time record. I think last year we did 1,702 students in 2 days, and this year it was 1,834, about an 8% increase. I want to just thank Student Services and Academic Services for all of their work. Both Vice Presidents Morrison and Lacerna were fabulous. Their deans, especially Michelle Brock and Debbie Douglas, and the entire Welcome Center staff did a fabulous job, because that process starts about August 15th, and it starts with multiple trips to campuses, financial aid workshops, counseling appointments, and then rolls right into the on-campus STEPS event in late April. I'd also like to thank all of the students. As Antonio mentioned earlier, a lot of our student senate and student ambassadors came out, and we could not process 1,800 students without the help of our current students. So thank you, Antonio. And then finally, talk about big numbers. Last Friday, we had 2,300 sixth graders on our campus between about 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. It's just kind of our ongoing partnership with Visalia Unified to share our college campus with sixth graders at the end of their college-going lessons that they do in the springtime. So we're really excited about that. I want to congratulate Michael Niehoff and thank him, as well as Vice President Morrison, and also kudos out to Paige Lovren from Visalia Unified, because we couldn't pull an event off like that without her marshaling all the resources from Visalia Unified. So thank you to all of them. Next, I get to introduce someone that I am so incredibly proud of. She is one of our President's Scholars. She could have gone anywhere out of high school, like most of our scholars. She chose College of the Sequoias, came here to play volleyball, get her 2-year degree, and then transfer out and play volleyball somewhere, and she's doing that. She'll share that with you. But while she was here, she also made time to participate on 2 straight CVC winning softball teams, amazing as that is. And she's been chosen as one of our 2 commencement speakers. So honored to introduce Miss Aubrey Cardoza.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Also, it's a great experience because I want to tell you guys thank you. COS has been a blessing to me. So when I came in, I was a volleyball player, a presidential scholar, and a part of Alpha Gamma Sigma. And that just wasn't enough for me. So I also joined the softball team. I got a job here on campus as a student ambassador working in the Welcome Center. Like I said, I'm a dual sport athlete, and through all of this, have been able to keep a transferring GPA of a 4.0. So during my time here, I am a presidential scholar, and the fact that this school was willing to make an investment in me, I made a decision that I was going to make an investment in the school. So I've kind of taken every opportunity I can. I will have completed 89 units by the time I graduate, which is next week. And like Mr. Calvin said, I was chosen as a commencement speaker, so I'm super excited about that.
Can't wait.
Super excited to hear it.
Yeah.
Do you have somebody you'd like to introduce?
Both of my parents are here tonight. So after my time here at COS, I'm transferring to play volleyball, both indoor and beach volleyball, at a school in San Marcos called University of St. Catharines. So I'm really excited and very thankful for the time I spent here at COS. Thank you guys.
Aubrey, tell it, where did you go to high school?
Mission Oak High School.
Mission Oak. I knew it had to be Tulare.
Thank you, Aubrey.
All right, congratulations. That's an outstanding, wow, what a job. Congratulations.
Next, I'd like to have Antonio stand up and meet me at the lectern. Got a little something for him. Antonio is also a President Scholar. He's participated in all sorts of things, including the Student Senate, and as a student ambassador through the Welcome Center. He is an all-around great guy, and thank you for serving on our trustee, or on our board. We always have a student trustee, and when we get one like you, it really makes a difference. So thank you so much for your involvement with our board.
Do I give a speech or what?
The
Floor is
It's up
yours.
to you.
You already made one.
You've gotten more comfortable on the mic. You could give it a try.
And I've got one more presentation, and to do that, I need to go a little bit off script. We've got a dean retiring this spring, and we just wanted to formally thank Dr. Robert Urtecho for everything he's meant to the College of the Sequoias. He has touched more lives than we could possibly count, not just students, but staff, faculty, and administrators alike. It doesn't seem like it, but at one time, I was a young administrator. And here for my very first year, at a private business, not knowing which end was up half the time. And Dr. Urtecho was such a great mentor and showed all of us what it meant to lead others, always with a mind towards student success. I told my wife the first month I worked here what a fabulous administrator Robert Urtecho was. And it wasn't because he was great with budgets, although he probably was. It wasn't because he was great with paperwork, although he probably was. It was because regardless of what we were working on, if a student, any student, stopped him, he always had time for students. And I remember at the time on our website, we had a picture of Robert sitting next to a student kind of working through a problem, I'm sure, in calculus or something. And I thought that was so appropriate. I showed my wife, this is so appropriate because Robert always has time for students. And Robert, this is a bittersweet time for us because we're going to miss you. We're so happy for you and Thelma, but we are really going to miss you and everything that you brought to the College of the Sequoias and your commitment and just your determination to always see student success as the leading factor in all your decisions. So congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for all you've done for the College of Schools. Thank you, everyone. It's been a while since I started in education. So you students, ready for this? My first classroom experience was in 1977. So go, wait a second, I wasn't even born yet. Yeah, for most of our students, some of our faculty weren't born yet. I know that for sure. I fell in love with teaching in Berkeley, inner city, underrepresented students who are deeply, deeply poor. And for years and years, I taught inner city Los Angeles. And my commitment was to help bring people up in socioeconomics and dignity. And COS offered me a tremendous opportunity, but it was easy here. Not because, I worked harder, it's because people were already doing the job. And what I was most impressed with our faculty, thank you. The students come back to me and they say, you know what? I've been to Berkeley, I've been to UCLA, I've been to Harvard, but you still have the best teachers. And I've always remembered that. And, faculty know that because of the commitment that we've had to our students. And thank you so much to all of you, board, President Calvin, Jennifer Lacerna, all of you that have made my job so much easier. And really, this is a huge tribute to COS. We're doing the job. The board members, this job is being done. It's being done well. Yes, we have 500 or so students graduating, but there's a lot more students that are moving on with their lives. And I know because they contact me. I was on the phone with one for an hour today as he was figuring out what university he wanted to teach at.
Wow.
So we've done an incredible job, and it's been a wonderful time here, and thank you so much to everyone. Don't get too comfortable, Robert, because I am introducing back to the podium Dr. Lacerna, who will introduce our deans, who will then introduce 3 brand-new faculty members.
And that was a total surprise to Robert, so he did really good giving a speech at the last minute there. So, and very bittersweet for me as well. He's going to be a huge loss to my team. But don't be surprised if you see him back in 6 months after his required retirement leave, because he's promised to come back and teach for us. So he'll be adjunct faculty. So we are very excited about that as well. And so I don't need to introduce Robert, but I wanted to say that. So he's going to introduce our first. Remember, we're introducing about 2 or 3 of our new faculty members at every meeting. So we have 3 on the list today, and Robert will be introducing our first one.
I'd like to introduce you to the newest member, the newest assistant professor in the science division and chemistry department in particular, Jenny Verissimo. Jenny was born and raised in the center of the universe, Visalia, California. I am the dean of astronomy too, so I can say that with authority. She attended local public schools and graduated from Golden West High School. She was the recipient of the Smith Camp Family Scholarship and attended Fresno State for 4 years on a full ride, and she graduated with a 3.998 in 2012. Her impressive record did not go unnoticed. She then continued on with her graduate studies at UCLA, University of Pittsburgh, and the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and she earned 2 master's degrees, one in teaching and one in chemistry. She has also received many honors throughout her career, including a Crystal Apple Award in teaching, a University of Pittsburgh Urban Fellowship Award, American Chemical Society Science Scholar Award, and a Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society Scholarship. She is currently a full-time advanced placement teacher in chemistry and also a chemistry and physics teacher at Golden West High School. And she has also recently served as a COS adjunct. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Verissimo to the COS faculty.
Hi. Thank you all for such a warm welcome. I am super excited to be joining the staff here at COS. I have loved teaching Visalia students for the 5 years I've been at Golden West, and I'm looking forward to teaching them just a little bit older. And yeah, so I'm very excited to be joining. Thank you so much.
Anybody have a question or a comment? All right.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Dr. Jonna Shingle, who will introduce our nursing faculty.
Hi, thank you. Jennifer Dean is not here. She's our Master's of Nursing. She's our pediatric specialist. She'll be joining our team full-time. She has taught at COS the last semester as a temporary instructor and has done a phenomenal job. Pediatrics is a tough area to teach. You have to have recency working with that age of patients, and so it's been not very many nursing schools in the state can fill their pediatric nursing capacity. And so we are thrilled that Professor Dean has opted and chosen to come here and work full-time at COS. Probably the best thing I can say is that she's a COS graduate from our own RN program. She has gotten her bachelor's of nursing and also her master's in nursing. And then she specifically did the remediation work that's required to teach in pediatrics. So the team is thrilled to have her come. And I think the point is that she is one of our own. She knows what our students need. She has done that career pathway of working her way through a community college and then a bachelor's level and then a master's level. And I meet routinely with Kauai Delta's VP of HR, who is Diane Cox. And if we take any more of their full-time nursing staff away from them, I'm going to have a target on my head. But I have to say that in the interview process, one of the things that we were most impressed with was our own graduates. Our own graduates from our COS nursing program ranked, even though they ranked high. We couldn't wait to bring those COS graduates back for a second interview. So she might be working tonight. I'm not sure why she's not here, but I wanted you to know that we're really grateful to have her and welcome her to our nursing faculty team.
Thank you.
And it's so fun when we get to hire our adjunct, especially the next one coming up, because I'm sure Jessie's going to share. She's been adjunct for 10 years. I'm very excited. And she also works here as a staff member, and I've gotten to know her really well, so it's exciting. And Dr. Wilcoxon is going to introduce our next person in psychology.
Good evening. So I am here to introduce Kelly Diaz. Just a little bit of background about Kelly. She is a former COS student. She's worked at the district, specifically as an adjunct instructor since 2007. So as Dr. Lucerna pointed out, 10 years. During that same period of time, since 2007, she's also been a full-time employee of the college, but in a different role. She's a senior instructional specialist in the district's language lab. She earned both a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology from San Diego State University. After 10 years of living in different parts of the state, California in particular, she returned to Visalia because she had very strong ties to the Valley, which we're always grateful for. Although she still has an appreciation for the larger metropolitan areas, she's excited to be raising her family in the Valley so she can expose them to some of the favorite things that she likes to, including like hiking and outdoor activities. One interesting, maybe a little bit of an aside, is she just celebrated her 21st, anniversary, married to another Mount Whitney High School graduate. So we are all, we being specifically the psychology department and sociology division, are very excited to have her on board as a full-time instructor as opposed to their former role as an adjunct instructor. So please join me in welcoming Kelly Diaz to
Thank you. I have loved working at COS. Thanks for that. Yeah, I usually need to lower that. And I couldn't be more thrilled to fill this new role. I'm excited about fall 2019. Having been here for over 10 years, I just love working with our students. I'm really committed to this college because of our student population. So to say I'm excited would be a vast understatement. So thank you very much for the time for the introduction.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Okay, very good. That's always nice to give out awards and the introduction of new faculty. All right, so we're going to move on to the next section of our agenda, starting with the academic Senate report update. And let's see, Greg Turner is here, and the podium is all yours.
Thank you. Okay, this thing's coming off. I'm destroying it. I don't need a mic, maybe. Good evening, board members. We had our second last meeting today. That is, I had to call a special meeting today, but we did finish business earlier today, including the equity report, so I can sign off on that. We got our constitution ready for the convocation, where we decided to start doing our elections and, well, not our elections, but our voting on constitution at plenary, it's the wrong thing, convocation, because it requires 2/3 of all faculty to approve it, so this is the best way to do it. Anyway, I'm glad to say that we completed our business today, so we're pretty much done for the semester. We also, last Wednesday, held our annual award ceremony, where we honored 4 retirees, 3 faculty members with 30 years of service, 5 faculty members with 20 years of service, 16 faculty members with 10 years of service, and 12 faculty who earned tenure, as well as accommodation to Christian Anderson for postponing his sabbatical, which you might be aware of that, when the temporary full-time person taking his place couldn't fulfill that role. So he got an award for that. The FEC committee and the Academic Senate would like to thank the board and President Calvin for approving the IIPs, the Institutional Improvement Projects. We did have 4 that were approved this year, for next year, and I think that's it for that. But we'd like to thank you for that. I remember when we had the discussion and I read Joseph's long speech on that.
It was all in the way you read it.
It was all in the way I read it. It was Joseph's voice. Okay. The end of the year report, I know a few of the board members weren't here, usually comes at the beginning of the year, so I'm just letting you know that. You can expect the end of the year report from the Senate at the beginning of the year. Of course, the issue is that we have 12 committees, more than any other governance group under us. And with the addition, if you remember, one of the things that I want to change that the committees would actually need to evaluate their own district governance feedback. So they like to have meetings to do that. So you can expect the end of the year report at the beginning of the year.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, questions for Mr. Turner? Looks like you're a free man. Okay, next up is the Costa report. Mr. Hurst?
Thank you, President Nunez. So the first is my wife's report. She says that y'all are stuck with me for 2 more years, and you can have me, she said. We had a pretty good turnout in the Costa elections. We had about a 70% turnout, which I find encouraging because on Costa Exec, we've really kind of turned a ship around, and sometimes you wonder if some of the changes we've made have been controversial, and we actually feel a lot more confident now in our direction. There's still a lot of work to be done. We still need to build bridges of trust, not only among faculty, but between faculty and management. But we seem to be generally on the right track. And it's actually a particular sign of health of the organization when you can have a contested election for president and come away with it, emerge from it without any rancor, and perhaps even learn a deeper appreciation for alternative viewpoints, because we're all on the same team after all. And as I was thinking about this, that same thinking to me applies to the negotiation process we've just started. And I want to tell you how good it feels to be able to talk through problems and concerns across the table and come up with solutions that benefit us all. On the faculty side, we feel heard, respected, and we feel our concerns matter. And we hope the management team feels the same from us. So from our point of view, talks have been productive and encouraging. The important thing is that, as far as I can tell, College of Sequoias is doing its best to move into the future as a committed team, as people working together, considerate of alternative viewpoints as we focus on how best to invest in success. From a union point of view, we look forward to bringing that spirit into the contract as we continue the process. And I know that none of this good feeling would be possible if you on the board didn't believe in it and share in it. And I want to thank you for your trust in Brent and his team, and even in me and the reforms we've enacted in the union. And I just want to say we're all in this together, and I thank you for that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. All right, so next up is CSEA report, and I see that bright orange shirt there. Must be Mr. Lamar.
I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Lori talked about. On May 1st, we have the all-staff dinner, and it's put together and sponsored by all parts of our campus. But I especially wanted to thank our PACE group, who does such a great job planning it and putting it together and stuff. And it was a great event. It's just one of those other brighter things when you say it's great to be at COS. There was about 120 people in attendance, so it was quite nice. I also wanted to say we're looking forward at the May revises out to sitting down with the district and negotiating.
I thought you were retiring.
That's a few more months.
Okay.
It's in the May revise. Yeah.
Written down.
It says, get him out.
So, Lamar. Thank you, Mr. Lamar. Next up is Dr. Erickson, and she's already made her way to the podium.
I know how valuable your time is, and I've missed seeing you all, but I wanted to introduce you to the people that I stood you up for. This is my Monday night class. We started in January. We meet from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock, and these are students that are interested in going to become teachers. And I think it's really great that you were all able to see people who are just joining the staff, and then also to see the retirement of a great teacher. So I'd like to just read this quote that you might remember from our first night of class. True teachers whose daily actions may not seem heroic are nonetheless the source of what makes humanity itself a sort of hero. The true teacher, no matter what his or her specific field or title, always will instruct us in humanity. Every teacher must be in the truest sense of the words both scholar and artist, someone who studies a subject and continually seeks to improve in it. True teachers not only impart knowledge and method, but awaken the love of learning in others by virtue of their own reflected love. So congratulations to those who are starting, and we're really happy to know that there's so many wonderful candidates. When I hear that there's 140 people that are applying for one position at COS, that is really incredible. Not so great for the staff who has to go through everything, but it is terrific to have the top of the top. I had asked one student to read a philosophy of education that's part of their completion of the program. And Brianna, if you want to come over. And these are students that are probably going to transfer to universities in the area. And Brianna's in the Tuesday afternoon class, but students in this class are going to be presenting tonight. And we're having all of them speak to you tonight. Would that be okay? No, just kidding. So then you'll appreciate Brianna. Would you give her a hand, please?
Hi there. How's it going? Can you guys hear me? All right. So just for starters, my name is Brianna Cabrera, and I'm glad to be here in front of you. It's a real big privilege. My teaching philosophy is about a butterfly. And right now I'm getting butterflies standing in front of you. But that's not what I mean. What I mean is that a student is like a butterfly. You know, sometimes they face light breeze, you know, they're just flowing, and sometimes they face hard winds. I was that student. I came from a dysfunctional family. I've gone through many challenges facing with my father going to prison and my siblings being apart from me. And as a second grader, that was tough. And I know that there's many children going through so much, whether it to be to that extent or some smaller extent. And I want to be that teacher that leads them back into the right path, or give them a privilege with the right mindset, because I think it's important that someone's there to guide them. That's what our purpose here on earth is. That's what your guys' purpose here, right? We're humans, we gotta help each other along the way. And so becoming a teacher means something so much more to me than it's just standing here in front of you guys. This is just the bare minimum of what I'm doing. But I want to become a teacher. I want to accomplish it because I see students like me and they need someone. And I had two teachers in particular when I was a student, Miss Treadway and Miss Jordan. Miss Treadway was a great, phenomenal teacher. When I moved away, it was very heartbreaking. You can only imagine my culture shock of moving into a school far away from my little town. But she managed to get a hold of my mom and had students write letters to me from my class. And just that made a big difference. So with that being said, I'm not going to read you this whole philosophy because basically what I'm telling you is the philosophy. They're butterflies and we need to help lead them. And thanks to my teachers, I have wings and I am now becoming that leading butterfly for those students. So thank you.
And just a word about COSAFA. We're doing negotiations. We're having our third meeting this Friday. And it's just good conversations, good dialogue. Yes, Mr.
I
Sherman.
would like to ask the students how many of them are going to stay in the Fresno State Visalia campus.
Would you?
Actually, I'll apply.
This is Aaron.
I would, honestly, I met with them, but unfortunately, as a full-time, I work full-time. It doesn't fall under my schedule because it is Tuesday, Thursdays. But I was so interested in the program. Unfortunately, I'm going through Fresno Pacific. But, I mean, what they have available is awesome, so.
Could you raise your hand if you're planning on transferring when you're done? Renee and Angie?
Good.
All right.
And have any of you applied for the scholarship that the foundation is giving? For students that are transferring over to our students that are transferring over to the Visalia Fresno State, the foundation is giving scholarships there, so you might want to follow up on that.
All right, we'll find out about that for finals day, okay? Good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There's our audience.
Okay.
Brent.
Okay, so next up, under information items, item number 1, quarterly budget accountability update. And Ms. Staton is ready to go.
I guess they weren't budget fans, Christine.
I don't blame them, but anyway. Good
Be right back.
evening.
He's getting me
Okay.
water. I'm parched.
Oh, yeah. Good evening, board members. 3 times a year, we bring you quarterly budget updates. Budget accountability is what we've called it in years past, and it's the idea of being accountable to you, trying to be transparent with what's going on in the budget. Hopefully you understand the reports, or over time, they'll make more and more sense to you. But we're bringing you some updates tonight. The first is our, let me ask, you can scroll, right? I don't, okay, I'll just let you kind of scroll. Let's see if we, I'll just telepathy tell you. Anyway, so the first one is unrestricted and restricted budgets. And we do this every month, but the left column is what the budget was last board meeting, and the right column is what it is currently. We do close these changes out probably late April, so it's not exactly what is today in our books. But if you'll scroll down, Any large changes will have a letter to the right that describe, especially with the unrestricted budget, what's occurred. But overall, our budget changes are not large. We were at $3.056 million for a surplus last month, and we're at $3.065 million this month. There's a big caveat to what we have in our budget right now. I think all our board members and most of you sitting out there probably know that the state has been working to figure out what are they really going to fund us for 2018-19, which is where we are right now. And so this was as of, most of these are as of sometime early April, or you'll see a little later, some March 31st, third quarter reports. So this does not reflect what we found out really just in the May revise one day ago. But we'll talk more about that. Our real ongoing surplus is not as large, but this is what's in the budget right now. So if you'll scroll, basically, let me think, go a little further. These first few boxes take you through what are the changes to revenue, and they do it, oh, you're good, they do it month by month. And that last box kind of in the center on the right shows you there are only two changes. I'm sorry, not just revenue, to our surplus, basically our expenses. And they were an increase, well, we reduced our budget, took some money out of our fund balance to increase our expenditures to renovate Thule 504, kind of an emergency renovation to make room for a few more faculty. We could use a lot more of that, but we kept it very minimal, and we're hiring a lot of faculty. And then the miscellaneous classified salary changes actually decreased our expenditures, increased our surplus by some movement, mostly hiring a data steward and freeing up some dollars there that had been budgeted, but also a little other movement. So that's that. And then you can scroll on down, and I won't go through it, but every month you can see all the changes to both the restricted side and the unrestricted. These are all revenue changes that we've done month by month. And if you'll stop there, that last box says revenue changes May 13th. And so for unrestricted, which is that first column, very minimal, some gate receipts and some miscellaneous income. And then restricted, we had two new smaller grants come through, so we budgeted those revenues. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, we do have a little more, you can keep going. I think it's quite a ways down there. We have a few more details given for our expenditure changes right there, and even kind of land there but go up a little bit as well. Looks like a lot of activity, but most of it is just departments saying, hey, I need less in services and I need more in hourly counselor, or I need less in capital outlay and I need more in student help. So you can kind of go through them and see some items canceling out. What's left, really there are two large decreases as we did those classified positions, miscellaneous classified salary changes, and you'll see the Thule 504 renovation when we increased our expenditures. Other than that, it's mostly movement. So that is, if you ever want to see what we adopted and track every change we've made through the year, it's all right there. So this next one is our projected revenues, and this is the one where the first column is what did we adopt. The second column is where are we now at our annual projection, and you can see we adopted $70.964 million, our annual projection, and these are all revenues, are $71.757 million. Largest changes, the changes are listed over to the right, and we had $466,000 of it's not state apportionment, but it came from the state. It is unrestricted. It came from the state in October, which is why it was a change for full-time faculty hiring, part of why we're able to hire so many new faculty next year. And then the local revenue, the $324,000, we do give details below, but the largest component of that was realizing that under our new agreement with Barnes & Noble, we have a lot more revenue coming in. So that was $190,000 of that. Another was the instructional material fees of almost $100,000. We budget those as they come in, as the faculty collect them. And then when they come in, we budget them. And that's our revenue. I wonder if I want to get into this right now or not. Let me just mention, well, really for those sitting out here, we have about, the state has gone back and forth with many changes to what our current year revenue will be. That was budgeted under the student-centered funding formula, and then we found out in March that we were supposed to actually get more money under the student-centered funding formula, but we always also found out the state doesn't have enough funds to fully fund it. So right now, when you look at our revenues, we're about, our best guess right now is about 1.6 million less than that, which is, the good news is it's not going to be cause a deficit, we think. And I have those numbers somewhere, but let's see, yeah, they're not right there. Okay, so let's move on to the next report, unless there's any questions on projected revenues. The next one is projected expenditures, I believe. And this one gets a little messy because it's always hard to project at this point in time what is going to go unspent. If you look at that variance to working budget, which is the third column from the right, you can see that we're projecting about 1.5 million to go unspent. As we get to this point in time, because again, we do this in February. In November, we don't do it because it's so early in the year. But here in May, we try and dig down to it a little deeper. Linda's been CC'd on a bunch of emails where I've been working with Leandra to really find out what comprises the classified salaries, which are a large component, and the services, which is showing 750,000. I have a lot of details. I probably won't go into all of that, but suffice it to say on classified, it was a unique, oh, you can stay up there, yeah. It was a unique year. This time last year, new student-centered funding formula, actually not exactly this time, summer, we okayed a lot of extra hiring of what we call the tier 3 of what had been prioritized. And we actually had total new positions of over $1 million approved last year, whether they were classified or certificated management. I'm not talking about faculty. But under classified, both management and classified, we had a number that we didn't fill until later in this year. And so I tried to track some of those. We actually approved 19 positions in all, classified and management last year. But I just listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for instance, that weren't filled right off because we only approved them in July. So some of them went much later in the year before they were filled. An example is the data steward, which was just hired recently. So the budget was there all year, but the money is going to go unspent. We had a researcher analyst position, which is actually going to go unspent the whole year. We're still analyzing data, research data. But anyway, hopefully going to be funded at some point, and some other admissions and records positions, things like that. So wanted you to know what made up that. Services being so large, that one I had a lot of angst over, but it just has many, many components. One example is we have some one-time funds for Hanford Center that came out of a one-time pot 2 years ago. We're carrying that 72,000 over. We have some utilities unspent that are fairly large this year. Bad debt expense is not going to come in at what was budgeted this year. Above base carryover, we allocate above base every year. We say you have to spend it by June 30th. Because of a unique year, most of those were facilities, and they're not going to be done by June 30th. So 135,000 is being carried over there. Some legal has not been spent. Campus capital projects. So there's a plethora, and I could give you more information, but that's why we're looking at a lot of dollars unspent. We're going to talk a little later about that 1.5 million that we anticipate will go unspent. It could be more, it could be a little less, but that's where we're tracking, so we can move on. Now, unless there's any questions on that? Okay.
Questions?
Still more reports. Let's see, this is the last one of this packet though, and what I wanted to show you, what we do is we track our fund balance from where we started to where we are at March 31st, which in this case was the end of third quarter, and our cash balances from where we started to where we are at this point. And if you can scroll down just a couple more, there you go. General fund, basically we're in a good place. If we closed our budget right there at March 31st, we would have had an ending fund balance of over 24 million, which we're not looking at ending that high. But you can kind of see how the ending fund balance there tracks down to our total cash. It's generally your fund balance is going to equal your cash, and our cash at that point in time was 25 million. Capital projects had some revenues come in because of those fall one-time funds we allocated. So you can see those went in and were budgeted. So their fund balance has gone up. Their cash likewise is close to what their fund balance is. The two that I'll ask you to kind of look at tonight are Farm Special Reserve and then the Farm Ops, which is kind of middle to the right. And so Farm Operations is actually projecting a negative fund balance, not by much. But you can look below, they're cash rich. They just happen to have a loan, a debt, to the Farm Special Reserve. And so on the flip side, Farm Special Reserve has a strong fund balance and not quite as much cash. They still have plenty cash, but $1 million fund balance and $400,000 in cash.
Well, let's fix that.
Oh, we could, but tonight we're going to try and fix it by only 20,000.
Okay.
We'll talk more about it.
That's coming up.
If at any point when Farm Operations really needs those funds to operate, then they will bring a resolution to you to transfer funds, and that's a very small one that we have for you a little later tonight. But anyway, and then you look at the far right, you can see total fund balance at this point in time, $40.266 million, and total cash is $40.746 million. So they are closely related. So that's it for accountability update. Any questions?
I have a question for Greg and Lori. Do you guys have any idea what our cash balance was 9 years ago, 8 years ago?
It was probably negative.
Linda does.
It was close. We were borrowing money to.
We were asking what interest rates were.
We were borrowing money, yeah.
We were negative
We did.
6, 7, 8 years ago, all of those. Yeah.
Don't remind her. She's got some PTSD too.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons we had to borrow money is the state wasn't paying us anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, they weren't paying us very much, and what they weren't paying us, they weren't even paying us.
Right.
They
On a
would give us
$44 million
IOUs.
budget, they took away $4 million completely, and then they deferred $10 million of the 40 they left us
Told you to
with
figure it out.
until the following year.
And they didn't pay us any interest on that.
Yeah, that's where that gray hair came from.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, very good. So I didn't mean to go off track there. Questions or comments for Christine before
Yeah,
she
that was-
moves on to, I think she has the next item as well.
Yeah, the next one is our quarterly financial report. And the Chancellor's Office calls it the CCFS Chancellor Community College Financial Statement, 311Q. We report this quarterly to the Chancellor's Office, helps them keep tabs on where we are, and it helps you hopefully also keep tabs. I will say something that I think is of interest. We used to do this quarterly, so there was a fourth quarter that also went. The Chancellor's Office has just come down and said you no longer need to file a fourth quarter. So for you, our fourth quarter was a little bit, the timing didn't work out. We weren't completely closed anyway. So for you, I want you to know, usually in September, we bring a budget update, but in that update, we bring you what happened with the closeout of the prior year. And I'm hoping that that'll continue after I'm gone, but that, if you really want to see where did we finally end up, what was our surplus, what were those accounts that had large amounts, September usually shows that to you. But back to this one, again, we report to the state quarterly. We are showing, I told our president earlier, 19 million in fund balance, and I was hearkening back, I think, to last year, but we're showing possibly 22.875 million. Well, no, we are projecting 19, so I have to see what we'll get in there, or 33.3% of fund balance, but let's look at the report actually. So the first page has actuals from 15-16, 16-17, 17-18, and then what we're projecting for 18-19. And I am correct, we just haven't scrolled down far enough. We are projecting 22.875 in an ending fund balance, which would be 33.3%. And that also assumes that $3 million surplus. You can see that right about in the middle, it's row C. And we will not be having a $3 million surplus. Right now, we're thinking it's about $1.6 million surplus. So anyway, the first page really shows you where you're tracking. It shows the state. What are you on budget? Are you deficit spending? What's happening? Obviously, we're very healthy, projecting a 33.3% surplus. Our fund balance as a percent of our expenditures. But something I want you to note, I kind of thought 19.8 million going up to 22.8 might be more than a 1.3% jump, but our expenditures are going up fairly rapidly. You can look at total expenditures there. We were at 55 million in 15-16. We're at almost 69 million this year. So it is calculated, fund balance is calculated as a percent of total expenditures. Your fund balance is a percent. So then, if you go on down just to the bottom of that page, I'll stay right there. At this point, March 31st, when we reported, we were projecting 10,320 FTEs, and you can see actuals from the prior 3 years. We're actually looking at about 10,150 or 160 right now. Doesn't really affect us greatly, not a huge change, because now we're funded on a 3-year average. So we're not just suddenly losing 170 FTEs. It'll be a 3-year average, and it actually doesn't affect us too much. You can scroll on down, and then you go to your current adopted, your current budget, which we call working, which is our second column. Year-to-date actuals, which don't really mean that much, it's just how far are you along. But you can see we adopted a budget with a very healthy surplus of 5.1 million. We now have a projected surplus of 3 million, which is going to go down as we get more information from the state. And then the last part of this is the Chancellor's Office asking us about any settling of contracts, which nothing's happened in this last quarter. And then have we had any significant events for the quarter? Do we have any significant fiscal problems, et cetera? And we were able to answer no to that. So, any questions regarding that?
Questions for Christine? All right.
Oh, I finally found what I was looking for. It's not 1.6 million less. If we get what I've kind of landed on and what the state is calling the constrained funding, it'll be 1.433 million less than what we have in here. So.
All right, still good. Still good.
Yep, still good. We're happy to be above water.
All right, and so now you're going to move on to item 3 on the information agenda.
So this, as you can tell on the board agenda item, I got kind of wordy, and I'll try not to be too wordy as I explain it, but I just think it takes some explanation. We have had a pattern here at our district of when we end up with larger, what we call one-time funds, we want to use them for prioritized projects rather than just have our fund balance grow. We did that in fall. The board prioritized $5 million. And that money was allocated, most of it transferred out to either instructional equipment for academic services or capital projects, emergency fund, or funding what's going to be an infrastructure and cabling project for technology, things like that. So at this point in time, what we did was we followed our resource allocation manual, which has a fairly succinct small area which talks about these one-time funds. And we started to look back at this list that we have maintained. Most of these suggestions have come from program review from different departments and divisions. Sometimes they come from senior management meetings and discussions from different service areas and just saying we need to add this to our list. There are larger capital projects or other large items, ticket items, that we can't afford through above base, and we don't have them budgeted because they're just one-time things. So what we did is we met, the president and I looked at it first. We've had a few discussions in senior management, and then this list went to budget committee, and they actually voted and ranked it, and then it went to district governance senate for their input. And then the president and I also looked at it and thought, okay, now it's finalized with a ranking. What do we want to do with it? Well, tonight we're bringing to you a list. And what I'm trying to make sure that I communicate is that if we do have 1.5 million go unspent at the end of the year, and if the final budget for 18-19 does come down with 1.6 million in a surplus, we may have 3 million extra funds as we're closing out June. What we're doing tonight is trying to give you information of what we're looking at, and then we would come back in June with a resolution to transfer for action. But what I really want to point out is we won't even know at the board meeting in June, because we're going to wait till the June budget is adopted and we know for the most part exactly what we're getting. So it would be a permission from you as a board to pull the trigger, say June 25th or something like that, to transfer the funds out. One of the reasons I want to, it's hard, you know, Ken might understand this, but from an accounting perspective, I want to just share why it's important to do it before June 30th and not next fall. Because, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. If we wait until after June 30th to fund possible one-time expenditures from an accounting perspective, COS would then end 18-19 with a larger fund balance by those designated funds, then would have to deficit spend, which is spending fund balance dollars in the next year in order to fund these after July 1st. That's fine, but if you have a balanced budget, then that turns your balanced budget into a deficit spending budget. It's not the end of the world, but it's not what our chancellor's office likes to see, or our accrediting commission. So that's why we try and spend them this year while we have them. Hope that helps. And just a reminder that this would all be pending actual excess funds in June. So then, looking at the list, kind of lengthy, this happens to list the top 32 out of what happened to be 52 on our larger list that had gone to Budget Committee. And we took some things that have gotten higher rankings in above base but didn't maybe get funded or have been listed as high priority for a very long time, being maybe 3 years or so. And then just also ranked with other input and information that folks had from their constituencies and departments and divisions. And if you can scroll down, we kind of picked a cutoff point at 2.3, almost 2.35 million. Should we have 2.5 million? You can see 2 items in blue that the president and I actually moved up. They weren't ranked that high, but we felt they should be a priority. One was a more minor renovation of the Tulare College Center Cafe, because we've done some things at Hanford, we've done some things here. We haven't really done anything major at Tulare. We're trying to bring in a coffee cart, but it's still not anything major. So that would help that become a little bit more of a kind of a Starbucks environment with a place to study and get food. And then the other was to complete the faculty office work that we had planned here for this campus, but we have no funds for it. For your information, should we end up with 3 million? Should I be off on the state and we actually get more money from the state? Maybe we want to spend 3.5, and again, this will come to you next month. We would go on down this priority list, but please note the very next item was to pay off outstanding debt, which is a lease revenue bond for one of our buildings in Hanford. Paying it off early would save our district $1 million. And I forget if it's over the next probably 10 years. I can't remember the exact years. But it's not callable until June 1st, 2020. So we could pay it off, July 1st of this year, but we could transfer the funds out. But having said that, we'll probably skip right by that, because whatever our more additional funds are, I doubt they're going to amount to over 5 million. So then we would go on down the list and see what can we afford, if that makes sense. So any questions about the items on the list?
Because how much money does it take to pay off that bond in Hanford?
So we have it listed at 2.735 million.
Well, that would use all your money then, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends on how much we have.
It wasn't ranked as the top, but if you can see the top 20 are ranked total 2.348. What I was saying, Greg, was if we get more available, which I kind of think we'll have a little over 3 million or about 3 million.
I kind of like the idea of saving $1 million.
I know, everyone else does too. But so in order to do it now, it would be remove and replace, remove those first 20 and move it up.
It's not callable until June of 2020.
Yeah.
So we could
Which
have
is
another
a
bite
year
at that
from
apple.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a year from now.
If the state ever decides to fund the SCFF, we should have some extra funds. But yeah, I mean, it's good discussion. You guys are the board,
This,
so.
refresh my memory, these funds were borrowed, do you know about when and what were they for? Were they for the new modular?
No.
Not for those?
We paid cash for that. They were a partnership with a grant from the city for the Voc Ed building, and I think it was about half and half.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was at the time the campus was constructed, pretty much.
Yeah, 2010.
But it wasn't part of the general obligation bonds.
No.
Yeah, that was the first building out there.
Right. Okay, so I'm.
And it's about our last remaining debt. We have methodically, through your help, paid off all these odd little either certificates of participations. I think we do still have the student center. Yeah, but do we have student
Solar,
center still? Yeah.
but that's
Solar,
zero
0%.
interest, yeah.
And a student center, which we refinanced and saved a lot of money. We did that this time last year, so.
Plus, we still owe on all the solar.
We do, but it's 0% interest, so we could pay it off early if we wanted to, but there's
That doesn't
nothing
make
we gain
sense.
from that, yeah. Trying to think, that's about 14 more years, I think, on that. So, yeah. So any input, we'll bring it back next month as action and a resolution, but the all-important wording that we will not pull the trigger unless we know we have the extra funds.
Okay.
So,
Questions? Thoughts?
All good projects, and I'm glad to see the various groups weighing in on them and helping to rank order and so on.
and if you have, if you have any input for down the road, feel
Yeah,
free to
spend it
share
all
now.
until
Or I heard that, I hear you. I'll put it in my notes.
Put that coffee cart down there. We don't have anything when we get over
Yeah, I
there.
need a place to go have coffee.
So the coffee cart is supposed to be there sometime this summer. Luann's not here, but coffee cart will look good. I think it's in Building B. Is that the education building?
So
Yeah.
Ken, you're still upset we spent all that money in Hanford?
No.
Just start.
John's gone.
We're on the Visalia now.
He may watch that video.
All right, well, that's,
Thank you, Christine.
it's a good spot to be in. Looks like a bunch of worthy projects, and it just keeps us moving into the future. I like it. All right. That completes our information item. Next up is the consent calendar, and so let me read, all items listed on a consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as separate agenda items. So at this time, we have, calendar has items 4 through 13. And what are your thoughts? Any items that we need to pull today?
Move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of consent calendar in one motion, items 4 through 13. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, so now we will move to action items, starting with curriculum report. Item 14, Dr. Lucerna.
Hi, everybody, again. This curriculum report has been approved by the Curriculum Committee and the Academic Senate and is coming to the board for their approval. On the first page, we have one new course in graphic design and then several course modifications. These are all up for 5-year review, so just the regular review and updating. The same on page 2. We have several 5-year review courses that are here just for their updating. Page 3, the same. We have all of these are 5-year review, updating textbooks and outcomes and things like that. Page 4, the top course is a 5-year review for music appreciation. And then we have several course deletions, and this is really, most of these on this page 4 are career technical education, and we have new faculty. We've been revamping curriculum, and so they've revised or we're getting rid of courses that we're no longer offering. And usually when we're no longer offering, we've got another course that is taking its place that we've updated. So that is in the iTech on page 5, as well as those courses there, courses that are no longer being offered. The bottom of page 5 start the programs, and so these programs, the first one for Spanish is here for a 5-year review, the second one's here for a 2-year review, and then on the back page, these are here for a 2-year review, just updating the information that we need to regularly update to the Chancellor's office. So it's recommended that the board approve this report.
Okay, we have questions for Dr. Lucerna.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the curriculum report for the month of May. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item, Vision for Success Goals, item 15.
Thank you, Ken. I'm surveying the room, and I think everybody in here is very familiar with our processes, our 10-year master plan, the 4 broad goal areas, growth, success, equity, and sustainability, and then the fact that every 3 years we have a strategic plan that has district objectives and day-to-day actions that drive those broad goal areas and ultimately drive our mission. This was something that we didn't have 6, 7 years ago, and we've worked really, really hard to put it in place, and we've been able to sustain it. In fact, we had 7 people at ACCJC making 5 presentations, and it was all centered around that work, how to do it. The reason was the reason we were presenting, and the reason that Chancellor Oakley has introduced the Vision for Success back in 2017 is that not all districts have that kind of organizational structure to drive their institution. And so while we have it, not everyone does. And so the Chancellor's Office has required that everybody adopt the Vision for Success goals. We're lucky in that regard, in that we use the Vision for Success as a way to develop our strategic plan, both for 15 through 18, and then certainly for 18 through 21. So what we've done essentially is taken a compliance requirement from the Chancellor's Office and then overlaid our goals and our objectives onto what they're requiring, just so everything is aligned, and it does line up very well. Dr. Osterk has prepared several different slides that kind of walk us through the process that we went through. Is this baby on?
Operator error.
Operator error? Yeah, that's always a possibility. And that does it. Any questions?
Yeah, that's good.
So this is the process for local district goal setting. Again, this is what's recommended from the Chancellor's Office. We certainly had our own version of this. We're obligated to share this process, but we went through this long before the Chancellor's Office has set it up in this fashion. This past January, we reviewed existing plans and priorities, saw where we had similarities, in some cases verbatim. Our goals and objectives lined up with what we were required to do from the Chancellor's Office point of view. We spent the last several months just setting those local goals. Again, setting local goals is a little misleading because our goals and our objectives were already set. It was simply putting them into the Chancellor's Office format. We adopted and reported our local goals, and we took it through our participatory governance structure, shared it at Academic Senate, shared it at District Governance Senate. And then you kind of see how everything fits together between our master plan, our strategic plan, our equity plan, and then our Vision for Success goals. The Vision for Success goals was really a key piece in us developing our 2018 to 21 strategic plan. So any goal that the Chancellor's Office was requiring us to set, we expressed in the form of an objective. And you'll see that here in just a moment. Here was a crosswalk that we used. Down the left-hand side, we showed the COS district objectives that corresponded to and aligned with the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success goals down the right-hand side. Increasing awards, increasing transfer, decreasing the average units, by our students, increasing CTE employment, reducing the equity gaps, and eliminating regional achievement gaps. So all of those things we believe are addressed in our strategic plan. We always like to show this slide when we're setting principles for standards and goals and so forth. It started with our institution set standards, and it's continued through just about everything we do, and that is it reasonable? Is it appropriate? Is it realistic? Essentially, when we set standards, goals, objectives, does it pass the smell test? And just because the chancellor's office says that they want to increase by a certain percentage, we don't just merrily follow along. It has to make sense in our region, and we're not afraid to have a tough conversation if it doesn't. So what you'll see is we've held pretty firm with what was in our strategic plan. Sometimes our objectives and their goals line up exactly. Sometimes we actually have set our heights or our sights a little higher, and sometimes we've been a little more realistic. And Chancellor Oakley and I had that conversation, and he basically said, if all of our districts do what College of Sequoias does, we wouldn't have to have a vision for success, because you would all be taking care of it on your own. This is for the districts that are having a tough time getting to where you're at. So that made us all feel, I think, pretty good about our processes. This is their first goal, which is completion. You see that they've set a goal of at least 20%, increase by about 20%, and our number ends up at 27%. And frankly, I gave you a little tease earlier, but I think our numbers are going to be even better than that when you bring in the increases we've had in degrees. It really is an exciting time. On the transfer side, this is an area that they're only looking at CSU and UC. So right off the bat, we have a little issue with the metric, just because we don't have 3 or 4 CSUs or 2 UCs to choose from. We have no UCs or CSUs in our 2-county district. Sure, Fresno State, Cal State Bakersfield are options, but Fresno Pacific, Brandman, the online program at ASU, those are all very viable as well. So we were just realistic, and we may only show 10% increases as opposed to the 35% increases. But when you consider the privates and some of those, our number will inch up closer to that 35%. And our guess is they'll change this metric over time, because a lot of community colleges will be experiencing the same kind of frustration over just the UC, CSU metric that we have. One of the issues with ADTs, the Associate Degrees for Transfer, they're awesome. They're a fabulous idea. We have the 3rd most ADTs in the system, because Dr. Lucerna and her deans and faculty have worked very, very hard to increase that number. The challenge is CSUs especially are being flooded with transfer requests. So that GPA keeps going in, the minimum GPA keeps inching up and up and up, and they don't increase it until it's too late for a student to do much about it. So a student that thought they were going to go to Fresno State for 2 years ends up going to Fresno Pacific, because there's no room at the end, in this case Fresno State, for those students. So there's some growing pains with the ADTs. Great system, great plan, but there's just some growing pains with it. Unit accumulation, they want to go from a system-wide average of 87 down to 79. We weren't quite that high. We were at 84 in 16, 17. And so for us to get down to 78, we only have to go 7%. So that's almost a direct lineup. We're starting at a little bit lower point. And so we only have 7% to get down to. And I think with DegreeWorks and the work that our faculty and counselors are doing with students, and especially with AB 705, eliminating some of those non-transferable English and math classes, I think this is definitely attainable. This next one is workforce, increasing the percent of exiting students who report being employed in their field of study. We want to increase this number. In 16-17, it was at 68%. We want to see that number at 73%, which is 5 percentage points for an overall increase of 7%. So we think that's definitely attainable. It lines up very well with our strategic plan. The next is equity. We want to reduce the equity gaps across all of the above measures through faster improvements among traditionally underrepresented student groups. As you know, we've been working very hard in this area from the first 6 years ago, the first equity plan that came out. I think the thing that we're most proud of around this time at graduation is that the demographics of our graduates very closely, if not exactly, mirrors that of our overall student population. That doesn't mean we stop working at it, but we feel like faculty, staff, administrators are really committed to this area. And this is just, again, a nudge by the Chancellor's office to do what we should have been doing anyway. And then finally, increase all students who attain the vision goal completion definition. Again, this is within the equity groups that we've identified by their definition as being underrepresented, and so we actually had to set numbers there. This is a good example of, while we definitely want to meet these numbers because we are required to, we really believe that we need to be lifting up all of our students. 2/3 of our students are Hispanic, and so they may not show up here because quite a bit of the formula is based on your average, and if 2/3 of your students are Hispanic, then your average is going to be pretty close to their achievement level. But we really believe that we need to lift up all of our students. That's why when I say that the demographics of our graduates very closely resemble that of our overall student population, that really means something to us and resonates with us. But these are the students that were, by the Vision for Success, these are the students that or student populations that we actually have to address. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for President Calvin?
Just observation, it doesn't seem like we're going to have any trouble reaching our goals.
No, I don't think so. Our plan is to crush all those
Yeah,
goals,
yep.
and I think we're well on our way to doing that.
Okay.
Very good. Nice information there.
Okay.
Okay,
And that needs
so
to be
that
approved.
is an approval item.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second for the approval of the Vision for Success goals as presented by President Calvin. Is there any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, very good. Golly, Oscar, looks like you did a lot of work on those slides, right?
Hey, what makes you think I didn't do it? Dr. Oster did a lot of work and continues to do a lot of work in that area. Thank you, Dolly.
Okay, so now we will move on to item 16, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board policies for second read. Mr. Calvin.
Happy to discuss any of these 5 BPs. They have made it through our participatory governance structure, senior management, district governance senate, and academic senate. They've gone through a first read here. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Move we approve.
All right, we have,
I'll second, but I could have a question. It's
Okay.
nothing major. It was just a question of curiosity. On 7120, I just saw equivalent in there. Is that something that was
or equivalent.
more? Does that make it that vague, and where does that come from? Like, is that coming from the Chancellor's office?
Greg Turner, if he was here, he was the one that suggested it, and it's a great addition. And He was chair and maybe continues to be, or he was the chair of the equivalency committee for several years. It's one now.
Okay.
So Greg was the chair of the equivalency committee, and there is a provision in the Board of Governors protocols or standards for faculty to apply for equivalency to show that while they may not have the prescribed degree, a master's degree in X, they could say, but my PhD in Y is the equivalent of that master's degree. And we have the local control to be able to, faculty, it's faculty driven, faculty to review that. And they don't do it very often.
Right.
But they have the ability through the Board of Governors to grant equivalency. And so Greg just felt like if we're talking about academic employees that possess the minimum qualifications or the equivalent prescribed for their positions by the Board of Governors.
Okay, and then that's just another process though, because it seems vague, as long as it doesn't cause any
For
issues.
For us, it does mean something, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good enough.
Good question,
Okay,
thank you,
very
Lori.
good. All right, so we do have a motion and a second for the approval of the stated board policy. So all those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then we are moving on to first read board policies, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Same thing here, although you have not seen them yet. These were reviewed and approved by senior management, district governance senate, and academic senate. 4 VPs, classified employees serving on campus committees and are acting as student club advisors. Confidential employees, classified supervisors and managers, and nepotism.
So I just, on 7260, it looks like the wording changed. I just wanted you to provide some background on that. I guess, is it the 4 year? So below, it sounds like you're just clearing up what that means by saying, as other members of the classified service. Is that where that language came from?
Correct.
Okay.
And that was recommended by CCLC.
Okay.
Which we don't have to take the league's recommendation, but most often we do because it's come out of some case somewhere. Or, they have a service where every time something is updated at the league level, they send it out to all of us, and so that was one of those occurrences.
Okay.
Why is, some of them just show that they're slashing college of the? Is that
Yeah,
somebody being nitpicky or what?
Well, we're just trying to be consistent. We started this 6 years ago with the accreditation, when we started updating everything. We started emphasizing the district instead of just the College of the Sequoias. For these, we wanted to go Sequoias Community College District, Sequoias CCD. Some were CCD, some were College of the Sequoias, and we just felt like all of them should have the same thing, and we landed on CCD. We probably could have almost as easily landed on College of the Sequoias, and we'd be doing the opposite now. We'd be changing some of them from CCD back to College of the Sequoias.
So they're just trying to get a uniform?
Correct, yeah.
I move we approve board policies as listed and waive the first reading.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and move on to second read. Are there any further questions or discussions?
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there. Thank you, Greg.
Greg is paying
It's getting
attention.
cold up here. Okay, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So thank you for that. And that moves us to item 18 regarding an employment agreement for our VP of Admin Services.
At our last board meeting, you met our new Vice President of Administrative Services, Ron Perez. Since that meeting, we have drafted an employment agreement, and it has been reviewed and has in fact been signed by Ron Perez. Tonight it's to the board for formal approval of this employment agreement. So at this time I ask that the board approve this agreement and have President Ken Nunez sign it as well.
John, this appears to be the standard contract that we have with all the other VPs. Is that-
It's
is that correct?
identical.
Identical, okay.
When's he supposed to start? Is he gonna wait till July, or?
He's gonna start, he'll start July 1st. Christine has already been bringing him up to speed through email and phone conversations on quite a number of things. He was here this weekend. They had a family friend who is a realtor showing them around. I was able to meet his wife, Sabrina. Wonderful. I think they're excited about this new adventure, empty nest, opportunity to try something different. Really had a good time. Renee and I had a good time getting to know Ron a little better and Sabrina. And so anxious to get up here, but selling their home in San Marcos. We've all been through that. I think they've got an offer and they're entering into a 45-day escrow. And so even though he's gonna be working on some COS stuff, I think he wanted the opportunity to sell, move, get here, establish their residence, start on July 1st officially.
Is he still employed down there, or is he no longer?
He is, through the end of the year, yes.
I move we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of employment agreement for the position of Vice President of Administrative Services. Do we have any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. We have formally approved that. And so with that, we have our item 19 and final item on the agenda today regarding transfer of some funds regarding the farm reserve account. Christine.
Yes, I'm here standing in for Dr. Luann Waldner, who was out of state, but she oversees our farm operations committee, and they have recommended installing a lift pump and related upgrades to take advantage of 5 shares of farmers' ditch water that we have in Tulare on our property. And the actual ditch that we would be drawing from is the Bates ditch, kind of on the northern side of our campus, near Bardsley. And so the committee asked, you saw earlier that they don't have any fund balance, so we can't officially have an additional expenditure there, but they would like to borrow funds, or not borrow, have a transfer of funds from the Farm Special Reserve to cover this cost. The committee tried to make sure we understood that they believe this will be a much more economical way to provide water, at least for this smaller amount of water, than pumping it and paying the electrical bill at one of our other pumps. And so we have a resolution before you. It's resolution 2019-04 to transfer funds from the COS Farm Special Reserve Funds to pay for the installation of the lift pump and related upgrades. The expected total is $20,000, or just shy of $20,000. So the resolution is here as well.
Okay, I suspect we may have a question or two for you. Do we?
No, I actually just wanted to make a comment, and this just goes to show there's good things going on in Tulare, but I have had a couple of comments in the last couple of months, farmers that drive around, people that drive by COS, and it's kind of become community ownership out there. I like that. People know who sits on the Farm Ops Committee. They're looking at what's going on out there. If they see something that they think they'll question, they'll call one of the committee members and say, hey, I noticed you guys are doing this. Did you know, and it's all good stuff. There's no complaints, but I just think that's a really, the names are out there. People know who they are. There's transparency, and it's great. People like that. So things like this, when they come up, they seem pretty simple because they've done their homework and it's credible, and they'll own. They've looked at it, researched it, and they're going to take ownership and accountability for the decisions being made along with Luann. So very helpful.
Thank you, Lori. I'll say.
The importance of community involvement is so
And
important.
we are so lucky to have that advisory board. I should thank probably 15 advisory boards for the good work they do, but we're on the Ag Advisory, and between Brian Wate and Vince Sola, Chris Lang, Charlie Pitliano, Craig Bergman, Joey Rosa, It's not like I'm missing one, but they're fabulous, and they never miss a meeting. We meet once a month. Of course, it's early, it's farmer time.
Yes.
But they're fabulous and really do a good job of helping Dr. Waldner and the district kind of navigate all sorts of things, from water irrigation to various
What to
fertilizers
plant,
and
how to sell it.
pesticides to what to plant, when to plant, just all sorts of things, as well as kind of serve as that community liaison for us. They're fabulous.
Well, I move we approve 2019-04.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 2019-04. Are there any further questions or discussions? If not, Megan, would you please poll the board?
Trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza.
Aye.
Trustee Lane.
Aye.
Trustee Macareno.
Aye.
Trustee Nunez.
Aye. All right, resolution 2019-04 is unanimously adopted, and that does conclude our agenda for today. I want to thank all of the hardy few that stuck with us for the whole meeting. I have a tendency to have the ability to thin out the crowd. So have a good end of the year, and we will see you next month, and the meeting's adjourned. And hopefully we got John out in time to make